Today we're working in our turnip green patch. Danny's sitting here on one of his little kneeling benches, cleaning out the bigger leaves. We're using our leaf bag, which was clean by the way, and we're adding them in here so that we can just work in between. I've got my bench. We're going to be canning these greens today. So we have a long ways to go, all day to get there. So I'm going to sit down and help Danny go through these turnip greens. I'll get them right. I won't call them tender greens. They're turnip greens. They're purple top turnip greens.
Okay guys, we're sitting here thinning the greens out some more. You can see here, we're trying to leave some space in between them. You see how big and thick they are. And I'm going to come around Wanda here and we're going to look over here and you see they look kind of rough right now, but we have to do this to get some spacing in between them. And they're probably still a little too thick in a lot of ways, but that's okay because we've got so many we've got to get through here today. They're beautiful greens. Get around over here. You can see our bag here is getting full. Wanda's sitting here picking leaves off because we don't like the stems on them. So we get rid of the leaves and we feed the stems to the animals. But you can see we still got
Long ways to go.
all that to go. We're hoping to fill this thing completely full here so that when we get ready to start canning, we got enough to actually do a good canning and not just a skimp.
This is the row. You can't tell we took a whole lot out, but we did. Our big old bag here, it's about half full of greens, and then all the stems are in the bucket behind there. So it's got a good many stems in there and lots of greens that are very sandy that have to be washed. These are what greens are supposed to look like if you plant individual plants. Look at the size of these leaves. I'm talking my hand here, and look how big. These things are awesome. So I'm going to be picking the biggest leaves. I'm leaving the center smaller leaves here. And then I have 2 more plants here. And I've already picked this one. You see the size of that leaf? We're going to be adding these because these will continue to grow.
I have to dig my wrist in. Oops. It's saggy again. Saggy.
Those oak trees has dropped all that
Look, Dan.
bloom.
I broke one.
It's okay. They're going to get broke up anyway.
Broke that anyway?
Yep.
Okay. We're washing on. We're washing pretty good.
Oh, these are some big old leaves.
Oh.
Okay guys, we're out here this morning. We've got our greens picked. We're trying to get the leaves washed. They're nice, big, beautiful leaves. We're going to try to get them cleaned up now and get them ready to can. It's usually a 2 or 3 stage washing process because they got so much sand on them because we have a sandy loam soil here. We kind of wash them one at a time, especially these bigger leaves, and then we'll come back and wash them in a group. You can see here, these are just big old beautiful leaves. These leaves here, guys, these are called tender greens. Some people call them mustard greens, but this is a tender green variety of the mustard greens. They're different than the ones that you saw us picking in the row. These here are a lot milder tasting than the turnip greens are, and we really like these. We'll keep these separate so that we know which ones are which when we're canning or eating them. Okay guys, we're working with our turnip greens now. We're actually washing the leaves off of them, and we have to take them. It's going to be a kind of a long process because we have to take it real slow. They got so much sand on them that we're having to just do them little by little, and it's going to take several washings before we're actually able to get them clean. That's one of the drawbacks to living where it's sandy at. Okay guys, here we've got our greens on the counter. We have them in the pot. Everything's been cleaned up. We're getting ready to start chopping them up so that we can can them. You can see here we have me and Amanda are doing the cutting up on them, and Wanda is getting them ready to start wilting them down on the oven so that we can can them.
We keep the greens in water in the sink and in the water bath canners until we're ready to cut them up. That way they stay crisper, they do not wilt and just go away fast. They last a little longer that way.
This is how we're wilting our greens down here. We're using a pot inside a pot, steaming them to help wilt them down pretty quick. It seems to work real good doing it this way. We can do a smaller batch at a time and do a better job of it. Okay guys, we're here in the kitchen with Amanda from Freedom Makers.
Hi.
And
Crazy Days.
Miss Wanda from Crazy Days. All of the work y'all been seeing us do on the greens outside, they're bringing it to fruition right now. They're sitting here. Amanda's packing it in the jars. We're setting them to the side, getting ready to pressure cook them. Miss Wanda is wilting them down ahead of her, making sure everything stays hot. We have our water sitting here getting hot to pack in the jars when we get through.
This is the last, baby.
That's the last right there. Okay, so we're gonna get there. All right.
We're ready to start
canning here. And guys, when you do greens, it's gonna be a mess. Okay, so you look around here, you see on the floor. See if I can focus in on some of this
Don't
stuff.
show my nasty floor.
There's greens all over the floor here, little giblets of greens on the floor. It just happens, you know what I mean?
Giblets of green on the cabinet.
We got a guy on the cabinet up here.
It's a messy process.
It's a messy process, but when you go to sit down at the table and eat a good old Bette turnip greens and cornbread,
Worth every minute.
worth every minute of this long, grueling process. You're going to get to see how many jars of greens that big old giant bag of greens actually cooks down and makes. We're thinking probably one good canner full, so we shall see. Okay, we have Amanda adding water to the jars to bring it up, leaving a 1/2 inch mark at the top on all the jars. They've had 1 teaspoon of salt added to them, to each quart. We're going to be following the recipe in the Ball Blue Book. It says that we will process the quarts for 1 hour and 30 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure at our elevation. This is what happens when you come to Deep South Homestead.
They put you to work.
You have to work. If you eat, you have to work.
That's right.
That's our motto, I guess you'd say. If you want to eat, you got to work.
But you also get to learn while you're doing it.
Yeah. It's a good trade, because y'all have good food.
Good old home-raised food.
This one's hotter than yours.
Last one you did.
Been sitting there longer.
Oh, on the first ones you did then.
And yes, Amanda is putting the writing in line with the writing on the ball jars.
I am trying. Oh, look at that.
Look at that.
What?
Perfecto. All right, guys, all those greens made 1 canner. Wow.
That's it.
We took a wheelbarrow load of greens and put them in 1 pot.
It was perfect.
It was perfect. All right, guys. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.